some of the top 25 games on this insane college football slate that we have upcoming on Saturday. Let's start with a couple games on Friday night. Number 9, Florida State on the road taking Virginia. FSU's a 7.5-point favorite in this game. The total is 57.5. I think initial look, if you just look at the brands of these two schools, Florida State, Virginia, and you saw what FSU did to Bama, and you've seen how they rolled against everybody else, and you're like, they're only laying 7 against Virginia. How is that? That's a little, it is, right? That's a little suspicious. Florida State does have Miami next week, upcoming. There's no way they're not looking ahead to that. Of course they're looking ahead to that game. That game probably is going to decide who goes to the ACC championship game, potentially. So that is a massive game for Florida State. This is also the first road game for the Seminoles. We're getting to the end of September, and they haven't gone on the road yet this season. And they're going up against a feisty ACC team. Virginia's much improved. Chandler Morris, the SMU transfer, has been playing great at quarterback for them this season. So it would only be dog or nothing for me with Virginia plus the points. It's a bad, tricky spot for Florida State. I'm going to pass on the game, but it would either be Virginia or nothing for me. Number 24, TCU on the road taking on Arizona State. Sun Devils are a 2.5-point favorite. I believe this is the first game this year where we have an unranked team favored over a ranked team. The total is 54.5. I'm going to pass on this game as well. Generally, when you have an unranked team and they're a favorite, you should usually back that team. It's profitable long-term when you back that team. I just kind of think TCU's better, and I think Arizona State is kind of fraudulent, to be honest. I think both quarterbacks are terrific. Sam Leavitt, Josh Hoover are awesome. I think TCU's the better team, though, and I think their defense is a little better. I think their offense is a little better. It makes me nervous, though, that ASU is favored in this game. So TCU has already played on the road against North Carolina. They've got some good experience in a hostile environment in a night game, so this won't faze them at all. It's going to be a good game. I'm going to pass, but I probably, if I had to bet the game, I would take TCU, to be honest with you. All right, then looking at Saturday's slate, USC and Illinois. This line has just gotten way out of control. The look ahead was USC minus 1.5. We're all the way up to 7 now on BetMGM. It's at 7.5 at some spots. If you can grab a 7 or a 7.5, I would take Illinois plus the points in this game against USC. Here's my stat of the day for you guys on the USC Trojans since 2013. When they play a road game in the Central or Eastern time zone, right, since 2013, they are 1-13 straight up and 1-13 against the spread in those games. Their only win came against Purdue a couple weeks ago, and they did not cover the spread in that game. USC is terrible in these spots. They've looked great so far. Their offense looks terrific. Defense maybe a little shaky, but this is, we talked about it all offseason, right? These schools in the Big Ten that have to travel through multiple time zones really struggle. And USC is at the top of the list. And you are getting Illinois off of as bad a performance as any team will have all year in a big game. That was a beatdown from start to finish. They gave up 63 points. Bielema is a good coach. Illinois has a lot of returning production on that roster. They should get up for this game after getting humiliated last week. So you're getting Illinois off the buy low of all buy low spots, and USC is terrible in these situational spots when they go to the Central time zone or Eastern time zone. Now that we're at 7, man, we're getting a key number. I like the Illini plus the points against USC. Notre Dame and Arkansas. This is a tricky game, too. Irish only 6-point favorites on the road in Fayetteville with the total of 64.5. Part of me wants to take a contrarian under in this game. Both offenses are terrific. Both offenses are putting up like 40 a game, and both defenses are awful. So everybody's going to want to bet the over in this game. I just want to see how high it can get. We're at 64.5 right now. Can we get a 66? Can we get a 67? Probably not, but that is something I would keep an eye on, maybe see how high it can go, and maybe bet a contrarian under, because as you guys know in betting, usually when everybody's on one thing, the other tends to happen. So that's my first thought on the game. As for the side, it would probably be Arkansas or pass for me. It does feel a little fishy that Notre Dame is such a small favorite. It opened at 7, then went to 6.5. Now it's at 5.5. We haven't seen any buyback yet on the Irish, so no play for me. probably be Arkansas or nothing at this point, but an under would also be a play that I would consider. Another team that's taken a ton of money so far has been the Washington Huskies. Look ahead early line for this game last week was Ohio State minus 13.5. Now we are all the way down to 8.5. There has been nothing but Washington money coming in on this game. Feels very familiar to Tennessee, Georgia, and Georgia Tech, Clemson, where those games opened at 7 and they just got bet down immediately, and you never saw any buy, especially in the Clemson game, you never saw any buyback from Clemson in that game. If we don't see any buyback from Ohio State, if this just stays at 8.5 or maybe keeps going down, I would take Washington plus the points, and I'd also take some money line as well. When the schedule came out, everybody was looking at Ohio State, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. This was the game that I had circled, though, was Ohio State going out to Seattle against a talented Washington team. And I think Washington's going to hang around. Crazy stat that I saw about the Buckeyes is that they have won 20 straight games off of a bye week. They're coming off a bye week this week, so if Washington does get up early, you can get a nice plus money bet on Ohio State. Might be a good live bet opportunity as well, but certainly another interesting game. And then finally, LSU and Ole Miss. Ole Miss, a 2.5-point favorite. Total in the game is sitting at 55.5. Has anybody's resume aged worse than LSU? We all thought that Clemson win beginning of the season was terrific. Now look how Clemson's turned out. Thought the Florida win was a decent one. Now look how that's turned out. So we don't really know what LSU is at this point. Problem is, we don't really know what Ole Miss is at this point either. This is a absolute stay away from me. I think it's a great game to bet live, and you should never tease college football, but LSU plus 8.5 does feel like a decent teaser this week against Ole Miss. Real quick, though, some breaking news. Mike Gundy fired from Oklahoma State. So the Cowboys looking for a new head coach. I believe they're on a bye this week. Shawnee Sharp, is that correct, Oklahoma State? Do we know if they're on a bye this week? Can look that up for me. If not, maybe look at Oklahoma State to bounce back with the fired coach, but I believe the Cowboys are on a bye this week. As for looking at some of the other top matchups we have in college football this week, Auburn and Texas A&M, talked a little bit about this game yesterday. I like Auburn plus the points. I like Auburn money line in the game against Texas A&M. You know, what I love about football is that as the weeks go by, some of these wins, some of these losses that maybe at the time looked really good or really bad, you tend to see maybe weren't the case. And that A&M win against Notre Dame was a great one. But every time we watch this Notre Dame defense, it just feels like things kind of get worse and worse. And we talked about the Auburn-Oklahoma matchup last week and why that was a bad one for Auburn, because the Tigers are all about running the football. And when they're able to do that, that's when they're at their best. You can't run on Oklahoma. You can, though, on Texas A&M. They give up over 140 rushing yards a game. So Auburn being able to run the ball and being the best defense that A&M has played all season, I like Auburn plus the points. I think they win the game. So give me Auburn against Texas A&M as Oklahoma State hosts Baylor. That's correct. This weekend is 20.5-point dogs. Indiana and Iowa is going to be a night game at Kinnick. This has been a super interesting game. Indiana, the early look-ahead line, was a 2.5-point favorite. They got all the way up to as high as 8.5. Now they're back down to 7.5. I think anything over 7 would be a look for me with Iowa, just because that is a really difficult place to play at night. And it's strength on strength. Indiana, top 5 rushing offense. Iowa, top 15 rushing defense. The key is that Iowa does not have a good pass defense, and Indiana is efficient passing the football. But Indiana usually beats up on other teams making mistakes, and the fact that they're so well coached and so disciplined, and Iowa is the same way. They're always amongst the leaders in the country in fewest penalties committed. They never turn the ball over. They know their identity, and again, they're really tough to beat at home, especially at night. And usually that's where top 10, top 15 teams go to die, so it would only be Iowa or pass for me. I do think Fernando Mendoza, when his passing props yardage comes out, I would look at that, because I think I'm probably going to bet the over, because again, Iowa's so good against the run. Mendoza probably going to have to make some plays through the air. Tennessee, Mississippi State, interesting game. Vols a 7.5-point favorite on the road against the Bulldogs. This was as high as 9.5, come back down to 7.5. Probably not going to be a play for me in the game. Tennessee should have won that game against Georgia, had a bye week to think about it. Now they go on the road against a much improved Mississippi State team that had a really good win a couple weeks ago against Arizona State. would probably be Mississippi State or pass for me. But again, no strong thoughts on that game. Arizona is going to take on Iowa State. The Cyclones, a 6.5-point favorite against Arizona. Total in the game is 49.5. Arizona coming off, both teams are coming off a bye. Arizona, very experienced team with a good quarterback in Noah Fafita. Iowa State has had some nice wins, some nice performances already this season. Again, it feels like the line is right. I think Iowa State in a money line parlay, good option this week going up against Arizona. All right, two of the biggest games that we're going to have all season, Penn State and Oregon from Happy Valley on Saturday night. This is all about the number for me. If Penn State, if you get a -3, I would take Penn State. If you get a 3.5, I would only take Penn State on the money line. We all know James Franklin's track record in these big matchups and what he does against top 10 teams. If Penn State wins, it's not going to be a blowout because Franklin just isn't going to blow out. Oregon is extremely talented, but it's a whiteout game at Penn State. Oregon's rushing defense, I think, is a little bit of a question mark in this game, and that's not something that you want against Penn State. They have not looked impressive up to this point, but Penn State also hasn't played anybody yet this season. Feels like everybody's going to be on the dog in this game, but Oregon really hasn't played anybody either. Oklahoma State just fired their head coach. Northwestern's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Oregon State's a disaster this season. So neither of these teams have really played anybody. Penn State at home off a bye week. I like them. Again, -3, take Penn State. 3.5, I like Penn State on the money line. Georgia-Bama, going to be an awesome game too. Georgia, a 3-point favorite in that game. I do like Bama in this game, you guys. +3, I like them on the money line as well. Bama is the more desperate team. They lose this game, they already have 2 losses on the season, and then they're probably going to have to run the table if they want to make it to the college football playoff. Kirby Smart, if there's one team he struggled against, as Patrick was talking about, it is Bama. He's only been able to beat them one time. And look, you're not supposed to tease college football. You're not supposed to do that. But if you were ever to tease a game, it feels like Bama +9 would probably be the spot for a teaser, because if Georgia wins this game with Kirby and how he struggled to beat Bama in the past, with DeBoer's track record in these high-profile games, and the fact that Bama needs this win, I think if Georgia wins, it's going to be a one-score game. So Bama +9 in a teaser, I think, is a good option this week. But I think they win the game, and I certainly like him at +3 as well. BYU is 6.5-point favorite on the road against Colorado. Nothing for me in that game.